Simon Caine, Chair of Manx Wildlife Trust. Every few years we like to take on new trustees. There's always a natural turnover. And I think at our AGM in the summer we're going to be going down to 7 trustees. And ideally we'd be at around a dozen or so from year to year. So we thought it would be a good time to have a shout out for anybody who wants to get involved and join our board. And I should also add we have a subsidiary company, Wildlife Limited, that is our trading arm, and we're also perhaps looking for a few people who might want to come onto the board of that company too.
Just explain a little bit more about the role of the trustee.
The trustees are obviously responsible for the governance of the charity, which means, in simple terms, coming to our quarterly trustee meetings, where we set the strategy and agenda for the organisation and check that our CEO and his team are doing the right thing.
I'm sure they always are. So do you need someone then, is there a specific skill set or a specific type of person you think might fit into the role of trustee, or is it pretty much a broad spread?
I think before I answer that, I want to mention that, as you may know, the Manx Wildlife Trust is one of 46 wildlife trusts across the Isle of Man and the rest of the UK. So I think most English counties have their own wildlife trust, and we all meet up every year a couple of times. And one of the things we talk about in those meetings is governance. And one of the things I've learned a lot about the governance of our trust is that we should do our best to have a board of trustees that reflects all of the population and is diverse and has different voices. And I've learned that the more diverse a board, the more effective it is and the better decisions it makes. And I think that's very much in our minds this time when we're looking for trustees, to encourage people from all sorts of backgrounds, men, women, different ages, different ethnic backgrounds. It's important for us. It's not just a sort of label that we want to have a diverse board. It's real. So I would say to anybody of any background who is interested and has something to bring, that they might want to look at this. In terms of specific expertise, obviously it's a charity. Our governance is important. Having professional people who can add value is always useful. I myself am a lawyer by background, and we have accountants and finance people. If there was one area I think I want to highlight, is we are keen to get at least 1 or 2 people with an ecology background on our board. And we're also looking for somebody who will act as our company secretary. A lot of the company secretarial functions are actually done in-house by our staff, but that is a role that we're looking to fill as well.
And so would there be the secretary position? This is, again, a separate position, a unique position in its own right. Would that require, again, previous experience in such roles?
Probably, yes. I mean, of course, on the Isle of Man, there are a lot of people with company secretarial expertise. It's a big part of our economy, corporate services. So, yeah, it would be valuable to have somebody who has experience of fulfilling that role.
Are any of these positions remunerated, or are they all on a voluntary basis?
No, it's all voluntary.
And from your own position as chair, how much do you think the actual role of the MWT has sort of changed over the years?
Well, we celebrated our 50th anniversary a couple of years ago, so in that whole time span, the organisation has changed massively. And I think it plays a much more prominent role in the island generally, both in terms of our relationship with government and various government bodies, and our role in education. But also we own a lot more land now than we used to. And another aspect where we've changed is our role working with farmers under our contract with DEFRA to advise on the AES scheme. So yeah, our role has changed massively. I've got to say this, one of our ambitions, as well as all of our functions and our core objects of working with the environment and improving our environment and wildlife and so on, one of our ambitions is actually to be the charity with the best governance on the island. I think that's something to be proud of. So we're looking for good people who are keen to help us in that regard.
And Leigh Morris is here as well, Chief Executive for the Manx Wildlife Trust. Charity with the best governance, is that a realistic goal for you?
We certainly want high standard governance, and there are some wonderful charities on the island. So yeah, we absolutely aspire for good governance. And I think over certainly the 5 years I've been involved, as Simon's already said, the charity's been on a journey for 51 plus years now. But I've certainly tried in my tenure to help keep that journey of governance progressing, because I think it underpins so much of what we want to do, especially, and I'm proud to say, part of the world's only whole nation UNESCO biosphere. And I think in terms of our economy, you know, our agenda is around wildlife and nature and conservation and restoration. But it's wonderful that more and more people now across commerce, finance, multi-government departments are now championing our UNESCO biosphere whole nation status. And I think because of that and the rise of environmental social governance and the whole direction of corporates now to work with sustainability at their core, that is crucial, that our governance is a high level, that those people want to work with us, because they expect people to be operating at a very professional level to deliver and help them deliver their ESG needs. So that has been a crux issue for us to get on that journey. And I think I'm proud of what we do. I think we've got a fantastic board. As Simon said, you know, within our articles, they're time limited, and trustees, we've got 2 coming up to the end of their tenure, and that gives us an opportunity. So we are looking for new people to come in, and we're hoping, and if I use the I word, I'm very much hoping that some of those leaders, bright people in our commerce and business are some of those who are keen to come and join us.
And Simon hinted at there as well the expansion of Manx Wildlife Trust's role over the years. And I think I've been doing programmes and talking to the MWT for about 20 years now, and it is so much more visible in sort of day-to-day life in the island's life now, whether it, as you say, whether it's working with farmers, whether it's land conservation, whether it's its role it's always been known for, sort of for bird life and the seals and such like around the island, but also just working sort of with government. It seems to have a much higher profile now than it did, say, 20 or 30 years ago.
I've only been here for, it's actually 5 years yesterday. So
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm proud of that. So it's certainly changed and I'm not owning that as this is something that I have done. I think there's been some synchronicity. COVID's changed, the rise in ESG, the changes in the island. I think for me, just to nub it, is that the Isle of Man is a blinking wonderful place. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't. And we are proud to be the world's only whole nation biosphere, but neither of those 2 statements mean we're perfect. So Manx Wildlife Trust is not a luxury. We have really important work to do. We need to conserve what we've got. Some of it is still being lost, and we need to make sure that it isn't. And there's bits that need to be restored, and we do need to really deliver the island's opportunity to be that world only whole nation biosphere that's showcased on the planet. So we're a wonderful place. We are the only whole nation biosphere, but we're far from perfect, and there's lots of stuff for us to do, and we're not a luxury. And so that's what drives me and my team to really keep that at the forefront of those conversations.
We heard from Simon as well that, of course, the Manx Wildlife Trust is part of a network of wildlife trusts around the British Isles. You get together sort of once a year. How closely do you actually work with the other trusts on a sort of, month in, month out basis?
Across the 40, everything from the WhatsApp group for CEOs and Simon's in a WhatsApp group for chairs. I think one of the things, there's 2 things probably, or maybe 3 things that have helped increase how Manx Wildlife Trust has been part of the Federation. So the first of those, I think, probably is down to me and Simon and others who are very collegiate and see the advantages of connecting. I think the second thing was probably COVID, because COVID suddenly brought Zoom into the world, and whereas in the past my predecessors had to get on a plane or a ferry if they want to engage with the rest of the Wildlife Trust, now we regularly have catch-ups and online meetings and webinars and share knowledge and work in working groups online. So we do that. And the third thing is the CEO of the Central Wildlife Trust team, Craig Bennett. So he doesn't line manage me. It works in a hub and spoke way, but nevertheless, if the wildlife trusts are asked for comment by the UK government, for example, they would go to the central team in Newark, and Craig Bennett would be the voice. And he's a very collegiate, federation-driven person that has brought us that. And I think because of that cultural change in the Federation and the fact that me and Simon have a similar ilk, that's helped. And probably the last one, number 4, is that we've had some big wins. As we are one of the smallest wildlife trusts out of the 46. I think we do bat above our weight. I think we bat above our weight because we're a whole nation. We're in the Crown Dependency. As I've said, we're the only whole nation UNESCO biosphere. You know, I have conversations with chief ministers and senior ministers. We are batting on a whole nation level, and that gives us some really good point. And we've got a lot of corporate businesses and finance here because of our political system. So we bat above our weight. But we've had, you know, the Aviva project, that was money coming into us. There are other wildlife trusts, whether that's a safeguarding policy, we can go to a central team, get policies and Manxify them. We learn from others. You know, Cornwall Wildlife Trust have helped us with our wildlife consultancy business because they've got expertise that we could, you know, Middlemarch in Warwickshire the same. So we get an awful lot coming back from the Wildlife Trust Federation that helps us. But I think we're giving back as well, you know. Who else can, you know, Yorkshire Wildlife Trust has got hundreds of staff and a multi-million-pound turnover, but they're not having conversations with the UK government about how the agri-environment scheme evolves, how their ELM schemes evolve. We have those conversations, and so it's a lovely dynamic for us being in that federation.
Quality, not quantity.
I think quality and increasing quantity. But yes, it's lovely, and it's interesting. There are 2 networks that we plug into. One is the UK Federation of Wildlife Trusts, which we are one of the smaller. But then also in that what I'd say UK Islands network, whether that's Crown Dependencies, the UK Overseas Territories, you know, in those networks, we're seen as one of the biggest, largest, most insightful, wealthiest islands to be part of. So we have almost a leadership role in those global island networks. And quite a different role in the Federation of Wildlife Trusts.
And then you mentioned there working with sort of government and such like, and again, obviously the body's an NGO, but people may be thinking about coming on as a trustee or whatever. How would you describe the Trust's relationship with the Manx government in this case?
I think we have, the short answer is, we are a challenging friend. And it's interesting, you know, that the people, you know, you go and listen to the Man in Line on Manx Radio and people love to bash the government, and the government are quite often an easy target. We empathise and support the government. You know, we want the same goals and outputs from the biodiversity strategy and the climate change strategy that our government wants. So we celebrate the fact that we can work closely with them in a positive way, and that's not just with DEFRA. You know, we've got a great relationship with DESC, that we work well with the DOI. It doesn't mean it's perfect, and we will be that challenging friend. But actually, we want the Isle of Man to win. We want the Isle of Man to win, and not everyone's going to agree in a room. We have to accept that people have different views, but we've got our stance. We champion nature. Nature matters to us, but certainly on my watch, we try and be pragmatic. It's not a perfect world, and we have to empathise with others, but also champion what we passionately believe in as a charity, that Manx nature needs to be respected and be factored into every conversation.
And just coming back to the current looking for the new trustees and secretary, I think, again, from what you and Simon have been saying, it's very important, really, that you're all part of a team. Sometimes you have the governing authority or the governing board of the trustees can be seen as separate to the people working at the cliff face, as it were. But I think I'm getting the impression here that's not what you want with NWT.
I'm a trustee I've been trustees of different charities for many years, so I do I understand the other side of the fence, and sometimes you have to remember which. But I think with Manx Wildlife Trust, because of our history of being volunteer-led, and it's only for half of our history we've had any paid staff, really. So the trustees are volunteers. They're really important. There is a clear role in terms of governance and strategic oversight that comes from a trustee. But we also offer anyone that wants to come on the board. Yes, of course, we're looking for their insight and their skills and their strategic governance insight. But bluntly, they're going to have the win back for those people giving us their insight and skills is that they're going to be as immersed as they would possibly like to be in all the cool stuff that we're doing, from the marine and the farming and the nature reserve management and the temperate rainforest projects and the education programs. And there is a lot of wonderful stuff done by a lot of brilliant people who I'm lucky to work with, that the trustees would be engaged with. And so we are looking for people that care about that want to get involved in those things, but also can swap hats and understand that as a trustee, that's not a supervisor or a CEO. It is a trustee. But they need to understand our work to be a good trustee, and that would be the fun bit for them, so that they could be at those events, they could get the tours, they would understand the work that we were doing, and then they're liaising at a board level and steering, delivery plans and strategies through me and the leadership team of how we actually deliver that. So I would see that it's been a really great balance, and I'm sure that it would be a really exciting and rewarding role for maybe many people on the island. I'm hoping Simon and the other trustees have got a real challenge, because lots of people want to join us.
I come back to Simon just to finish off then. So basically, yes, as Leigh was saying, an exciting opportunity, I think, for anyone who's interested in the island's ecosystem and sort of natural environmental heritage and such like, to get involved and actually play a part. $1 million question is then how do they do it? If they're listening to this or they hear anything about the roles coming up, how do they get involved? How do they apply?
Send an email to chair@mwt.im and I'll get that and I'll be able to point them in the right direction. I think that's a simple answer. Or if you look at our website, there's a detailed description of the roles that we're looking for. The one thing I would like to mention at the end is when we did this 5 years ago, it was actually quite embarrassing because we had an awful lot of people who wrote in, and we only were able to take on about half a dozen. So
which is good in a way.
It's a nice problem to have, but it was slightly embarrassing to have to say to people, sorry, we've had an awful lot of people replying. But it's people who are interested in this, of course. We have all sorts of needs for volunteers, and not just in this role. So people interested, obviously get in touch in that way, but there are many other ways they might be able to help Manx Wildlife Trust out in the field or in our shop or in our office or in many different ways.
And is there a cut-off date for this?
I think it's the 16th of February.
So plenty of time. If you're hearing this now, you can get your application in, have a think about it, and as Simon says, even if you don't fancy this, you can still get involved in one way or another, hands-on or slightly less hands-on, I suppose, with the Manx Wildlife Trust. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.